Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Valora Washington. I am CEO of the CAYL Institute, that's Community Advocates for Young Learners. Thank you for joining us at this webinar series. Every first Thursday of the month at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, we offer these webinars to bring you timely, relevant, and inspiring conversations in the early childhood education field. And right now, we're really excited. We are excited because we are celebrating our 20th anniversary. We have been catalyzing change, inspiring the next generation, and we've been doing it for 20 years. So thank you so much, each and every one of you who've been part of our community for the past 20 years. And we want to give a special thank you to the Schott Foundation. You know, we were founded by the Schott Foundation, and we're really very pleased that they are a sponsor of this webinar series. And you can support the webinar series and the CAYL Institute with any donation. None is too small. You can make a tax-deductible donation by texting the word CAYL to 53555. All of our webinars and follow-up materials are always without cost to you. This is how we've done it for over 20 years. So thank you so much for your support that makes that possible. We have 5 core principles, as those of you who listen to our webinars have often heard. And this year, we are continuing to shine a light on the giant leap forward that we think is needed for our children and our families and the people who work with them. We have a sense of urgency about this. And so we're looking backward and we're looking forward to think about what we can learn from the pioneers in our field, as well as how we pass the baton to the next generation of leaders. How we do this, we call it moonshots, big ideas that we want to have done for our children. You're looking at an image of a Sankofa bird, which is a very important symbol from West Africa that's very important in the African American tradition. This is a mythical bird that is looking back, but moving forward. And that's what we want to do in this series. Look back and celebrate our pioneer leaders. At the same time, move forward and help the new generation of leaders understand and support what we need to do for all of our children and families. How can we do this together? So to learn more about how to do it together, to take this Sankofa opportunity, we've teamed up with Exchange Magazine to ask you questions about how we can really support equity, support our children, families, and staff as we move forward as a field. We're inviting you to join us in answering questions and sharing with us how you think we can move forward. So let's begin right now. You can start to put your questions and answers and thoughts and experiences in the chat. This month, we're really focused on families, so we love to hear what you have to say about the major issues of inequity that families are facing right now, and what strategies you think are needed to address them. We love to hear from you, so please join us in the chat, and please answer the questions that Exchange Magazine and we will be providing to you over the next few months. Well, one thing for sure, we know that it takes a lot of courage to stand up for children and families and the workforce. And you know, the rhetoric we hear doesn't always match the reality. And it's our leadership that stands in the gap between this vision and reality. So many questions come to our mind, but one of the things we're going to do as we try to address these questions is call on some of our pioneers to help us think about the courage that they've already shown. What lessons can we learn from them? And we're going to be asking next generation leaders to join these pioneers to talk about how we move forward. So last month, we heard from Sherry Killens-Stewart as she talked with us about equity and the courage it takes to fight for equity. This month, we're emphasizing families, and we're going to be hearing from pioneers Gloria Rodriguez and Adrián Pedroza as they talk to us about the courage it takes to continue to fight for families. Family child care is always continually needing courageous leaders. And we're going to hear from one of the best, Jessica Sager, who's going to talk to us about the courage it has taken over her career to really fight for family child care. And we still know that developmentally appropriate practice is always being threatened. Let's hear from Barbara Cooper about the courage it takes to fight for developmentally appropriate practice. And finally, we'll wrap up this series by hearing from Maurice Sykes, talking us about the courage it takes to fight for systems change. Over the past 20 years of CAYL's existence, we've been thinking a lot about all of these questions, and we have many resource materials that you can use. In these resource materials, you will read the stories of courageous early childhood educators just like you and what they're doing in their local communities to make a difference. So let's get started today thinking about families. As we do this, you'll know that after this webinar, we'll be sending you an email of resources to help you dig a little bit deeper into this issue of how we can show support for families. And for your convenience, today's webinar is recorded, closed captioning is available. Please write in the chat. We really want to hear from you throughout the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, be watching, because we're going to put a link in the chat. And if you want to interact with our speakers today, please click that link and you'll have a chance to talk directly with them. So again, today we're going to be talking about families and the courage it takes to fight for families. Early childhood educators have always known the importance of working with families, and we know that many times it is easier said than done. So how do we collaborate and co-design our work with families in ways that are meaningful to them and to us? And as the complexity of working with families changes, engaging, empowering, investing in families is much more important now than ever. So thank you for joining us in this conversation today as we try to take a dive to look into the past, the strong courage it's taken in the past, and we're also going to look forward to talk about how we can support families. We're going to look at the pride that families bring, immigrant families, particularly the Latino experience. We're going to look at their resilience and their resourcefulness today. We're going to look at 3 generations of leaders today. So I'm really excited to see these 3 generations of leaders today. We're going to see how the social climate has changed to support or not support families over the past few decades. And we're going to see the benefits of early childhood services for both children and families as we look back and we look now. So it is my great pleasure that we're going to welcome Dr. Gloria Rodriguez. Any of you who know Gloria Rodriguez knows that she is the innovative founder of the AVANCE movement and the courage that it has taken for her to found AVANCE over 50 years ago, what people thought about families and doing that work in, and how this work has been sustained over time. We're then going to hear from Adrián Pedroza, who is a contemporary leader, National Executive Director of Abriendo, Puertas, Opening Doors. What are some of the issues that his organization is facing today as they're trying to face families? And then let's hear from a new generation leader. Really happy to welcome Jackie Herrera, who's the program director at the Waltham Family School. And what kind of issues is she facing as she is still trying to do this work at a very deep level with families? So let's get started and hear from Gloria Rodriguez. Gloria, please join. It is such an honor for me to welcome and celebrate you today. And I want to thank you so much for the courageous leadership that you have shown over 50 years, digging deep, working with families in communities when nobody else wanted to. So welcome. We're delighted that you're here.
Thank you so much, Valora, for the invitation. And it is an honor and pleasure to be here, especially to speak to all these childcare experts, practitioners, administrators, and advocates of young children. I have my doctorate degree in early childhood education. I understand the importance of the early years and and of your important labor of love, our important labor of love, in the shaping of young minds and the vital contribution that you're making to children's future, their educational and economic success, their health, mental health, their future social relationships, as well as the contributions that they will make to society when they grow up. I am the founder of AVANCE and served as its president and CEO for 32 years. I was asked to share my history as the founder and asked to share some of our achievements in the early childhood and family support field. I have to say that I'm very happy to announce that we are celebrating this year 50 years of service. So that alone is quite an accomplishment. We work mostly with poor Latino families in the nation's most vulnerable communities. Avance was one of the first organizations in the country that engaged and empowered parents in their children's first and most important years. And I have to say that the journey has been one that has really touched my heart. But we were the ones that really emphasized the importance of parents as the first teachers and advocates, and also providing them with parent education and comprehensive family support services within a community context. The child from birth to 3 years of age was our entry to the family, and we used a two-generation approach where parents attended weekly, 3-hour, 9-month program that offered child growth and development classes, toy making, home visits. We had many celebrations, and we collaborated with many partners in the community to provide comprehensive services. All this while our children were in a developmentally appropriate childcare setting. We developed a wonderful curriculum as well as guiding principles that would help us stay true to our mission and to be able to produce similar positive outcomes in the future. We proved that Avance worked empirically. Through a $1 million Carnegie research study, we found that the Avance model we co-designed transformed lives by changing knowledge, attitudes, and behavior. We also conducted a follow-up study of the first class of Avance graduates and their children, and found out that we reversed this parent-child educational attainment level from a 92% parental dropout to a 96% graduation rate for their children. We did it in the very high-risk communities full of crime, drugs, and violence. I was told, do not go there. Do not go to the Mirasol housing project because it is dangerous. Parents are lazy. They do not care for their children, and it will be a waste of your money. I knew that if it worked at Mirasol, which was walking distance from where I was reared, it could work anywhere. And we proved the skeptics wrong. And because it did work, Avance received extensive publicity and recognition as an effective early childhood family support model, including being featured in the White House twice as an early childhood model, 3 times in the New York Times, ABC World News Tonight, Good Morning America. We were cited in 3 First Ladies' books and visited by Prince Charles, now King Charles of England, Barbara Bush, and Rosalind Carter. How and why did I venture to start this pioneering organization more than 50 years ago? What life-changing experiences occurred that enabled me to become a transformational leader and a change agent at a time when the prevailing belief was that parents did not want, nor should they get, assistance in raising their children? Also, that it was better to treat a problem than to prevent it, and it was much easier to ignore it, regardless of the consequences to the child, the family, and to society. I want to begin by saying first, my journey started when I graduated from one of the poorest high schools in the country in the Edgewood Independent School District during the civil rights movement of the 1960s, where people were marching for equality and opportunity. So it all started with the opportunity that I received to be the first in my family to graduate from college because of President Johnson's Warm Poverty Program at Our Lady of the Lake. It was called Project Teacher Excellence, that trained leaders from poor communities to become one of the first certified bilingual teachers in the country, with the intentions of returning to one's community or a similar one to teach. I graduated in 3.5 years and was assigned children from 4 classrooms that had been labeled and they had been set aside and ignored the first half of the year because they entered school without the pre-readiness early childhood skills and who spoke mostly Spanish. The school did not know what to do with them, so I was hired to do whatever I wanted for 1.5 years. 30 of the 35 children moved on successfully to the 3rd grade. 4 did well in the 2nd grade, but one child needed more help in reading, and I was willing to continue to tutor her after school in my classroom. A second factor that changed the trajectory from being a teacher to going into early childhood education was that I wanted to change the school culture that allowed teachers to punish and humiliate students. On my first day of teaching, I witnessed a teacher punishing and humiliating 4 Latino children by having them eat on the floor because they were sharing food from one tray to the other. Well, I want to say I come from a large family, and we were always encouraged to share with one another. So I complained, but nothing was done. As a child of an immigrant father from Mexico and a maternal and paternal immigrant grandparents from Mexico, this incident brought back painful memories when I was forced to put my nose in a circle on a blackboard because I only knew Spanish, and that was a form of punishment. Third, I call this my epiphany moment. Unfortunately, the child that I tutored after school was assigned to this teacher that had the children eating from the floor. One day, that same teacher came to my class after school while I had my arm around the child while as she was reading to me. When she saw her, that student tried to run out of the door, but the teacher grabbed her, told her, "I told you never to come into this classroom again," tossed her against the wall, and this tiny little girl fell into the trash can right in front of me. So that was the epiphany moment that gave me so much anger, so much passion, and drove me to advocate for that child and many other children in the future. When I approached the father about the incident, he initially hesitated to advocate for his child because he said he did not know the language, did not have proper clothing, and he did not feel he had the power to change things. I can tell you that I would never have started AVANCE, and perhaps AVANCE would not exist today had this incident not happened. I returned to my school, Our Lady of the Lake, to get my principal certificate, thinking I, as a principal, would be able to change the culture of at least one school and never, ever permit a teacher to mistreat another child in my presence. But fate had it that when I returned to Our Lady of the Lake, I had a significant illuminating experience that would clarify what I needed to do instead of becoming a principal. I got my principal certificate, but I never used it. I was introduced to Phyllis Livenstein's mother-infant program out of New York, where parents of young children under the age of 3 made toys as a means of getting their children ready for school. it was so clear to me that I wanted to be a teacher of parents instead of teaching children directly. And I needed to do it before their children entered school, especially during the critical formative years of life that were from birth to 3. I wanted to empower those persons to become the best teachers of their children, as well as their strongest advocate. As a result of a research study that I conducted while at Our Lady of the Lake, where the parents of my former students were the subjects, I knew that I had to go beyond this, beyond teaching parents. The research study revealed something very important to me. They loved their children and wanted the best for them, but they did not see themselves as teachers of their children or knew what they needed to do as teachers before they entered school. And more importantly, they did not think that their children were going to go beyond the 7th grade, the grade they had attained. It forced me to peel the onion. My mother only had a 3rd grade education. She did not think I was only going to go to the 3rd grade. Quite the opposite. She and my grandfather, who helped raise me after my father died when I was 2 years of age, encouraged us to go as far as we desired and to fulfill God's plan for our lives. My mother kept the same hopes and dreams alive that my grandmother had when she crossed the Mexican border during the Mexican Revolution, searching for a better life. She kept these hopes and dreams alive in spite of many, many tragedies. As I said, my father died when I was 2 and left my mother a widow with 5 girls 1 year apart, ages 1 to 6. Her mother died 1 year later. Her only sister died 2 years after that. What made the difference, I thought, when I was looking at this research study, that my mother never lost her hope, and these parents had. After peeling the onion, I came to the conclusion that it was the family support that my mother received that kept her strong and her hopes and dreams alive. My grandfather moved in and became my father. My uncle lived next door. Aunts and uncles lived all around us. Neighbors knew each other and helped one another. There was a strong sense of community. Even though we were poor, we were very, very strong in community. So I wanted to start a program like Phyllis Livenstein that helped parents develop pre-readiness skills. But I will also wanted to add the important family support component to keep their hopes and dreams alive for their children as my mother had for her children. I talking about courage. I did not know how I was going to do it, but I knew I was going to implement the vision that I had in my mind. I called the next event in my trajectory, in my journey, a miracle, because God helped me fulfill that plan that He had for me in my life. And I give Him all the honor and glory. Because as I was struggling to find funds to implement my vision and finding a lot of resistance, out of nowhere, the Zale Foundation from Zale Jewelers was looking to hire a child development teacher slash director to start AVANCE in San Antonio. A year before this, the Zale Foundation funded the first AVANCE program in Dallas, Texas, that was designed similar to Phyllis Livenstein's organization without family support. I was told that I was in charge of designing, implementing, and hiring staff, sustaining Avance Inc. in San Antonio, and finding its location. 3 years later, Avance Dallas closed its doors for lack of funding, and Avance in San Antonio survived and flourished and expanded and was recognized as a national model. We added a community-based approach. I started the first Avance in my community, walking distance from where I was reared, and then expanded it to two other housing projects, and then to a house in the south side of San Antonio. Then expanded the model to 20 years later, I expanded it to 9 cities in Texas, including Dallas. So we opened up Avance again 20 years later. Then we went to Kansas City and to Los Angeles. I raised $5 million to renovate a historic building to house our national headquarters office to provide training and technical assistance. I also wrote a book, here it is, both in English and Spanish, called Raising Nuestros Niños, to try to reach more families, to help them in this important role in helping their own children. I was asked to speak to many potential funders. That's where I met Valora when she was with Kellogg, and policymakers about our work. And I was in many boards, commissions, and committees that pushed the family support field forward. This including being on the founding board of the Family Resource Coalition, where we convinced Senator Ted Kennedy about the importance of investing in families and young children before Head Start. This resulted in funding for early Head Start, and Avance was one of the first recipients to get it. It took courage. It took a lot of courage, determination, passion, creativity, and hard work from a team of dedicated, committed individuals, mostly Latina women. It was not easy, but so rewarding and fulfilling. To quote Robert Frost, there were two roads that I had, being a teacher or going into this new field of early childhood and family support. And I took the one that was less traveled by. And that has made all the difference to over 10,000 parents and children that Avance serves annually, and all the countless of lives that it has impacted these past 50 years, and the future generations that will benefit as well in the future. Again, I thank God for his blessings. And as the founder, I am glad that my legacy continued beyond the founder after I retired. I especially want to thank the current president and CEO, Dr. Teresa Granillo, for taking the baton. Valoro's talking about taking the baton and vowing to continue Avance's great mission. So I thank you for the invitation, and it has been a pleasure to share with you my journey with Avance.
Thank you so much, Adrian. We'd so welcome you.
Yes,
You're
and
someone
now I'd
who
like
is,
to introduce Adrian, who follows you. Thank
yes,
you.
Adrian,
Adrian.
welcome. And we'd love to have you now talk. You're running an organization right now and continuing this baton. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Valora, and congratulations to the CAYL Institute and on your 20th anniversary and all the great work that you do. And to Gloria, just, it's just such an honor to work alongside you and the legacy that you have built with Avance. Abriendo Puertas, opening doors, really, learns from so many partners and pioneers such as you, Gloria, and you, Valora, who have done this work for so long. And, we just, as you said, Valora, are honored to carry on the baton and to continue doing this work in honor of the parents and families and caregivers that we work with every day. Just a little bit about myself very quickly. I'm the father of 3 children, wonderful children, Mariana, Marco, and Emilio, who I raised surrounded by family and community, along with my amazing partner, Valerie, my life partner who does this work with me, and that we enjoy every day, along with all its joys and challenges. I'm the son and grandson to a loving family who sacrificed everything to migrate north from central Mexico, making their way to the border, and then to Chicago, Los Angeles, and New Mexico, where I reside now. I'm the product of many mentors and friends who have believed and who continue to believe in my leadership, including the founder of Abriendo Puertas, Opening Doors, Sandra Gutierrez, who is a pioneer in the work also of family leadership and engagement. And she really laid the groundwork for the work that we do now to invest in parents and caregivers as their child's first teacher and advocate. So, really work on the shoulders of all the people that have laid the foundation for this work that we continue doing, this very important work that continues to evolve. As I kind of reflected on this talk, on this panel discussion, I really thought about my life and the investments that were made in me as a person, right? As a community member, as a student, as a learner, and really the investment that's been made in my why, right? My purpose and the investment of time and resources in the leadership, right? That I bring. And what stands out most, right, is that the people that took the time to really listen to me, to listen to who I was, is what sticks out the most, right? I still remember the first time that I was told that my experience, my identity mattered, right? It was my junior year in high school, and I did not have the resources to go to college, and I was told that there were people out there who were willing to listen to my story, to my background, and to make an investment, right, in my future and who I was, and that was the first time I had heard, right, that I mattered, right, that my story mattered. And I share this because at the core of what we do at Abriendo Puertas, Opening Doors, and the work that I've done over the years is to really create and build community that invests in what matters to people, what matters to families. And this starts by taking the time to listen and to understand what parents, caregivers, and families say they want for their children and families. Uh, to listen to their goals, to their dreams, to their visions, and to say to them that yes, you can do this, that you have the power, the agency to do this, and you have a community around you that will walk with you in this path. As the father of three kids, I really embrace the community that it takes, right, and the family members and my partner, and all the work that it takes, right, to invest in our children. And then as we look at our community around us and the children around us, right, all we want, right, is to see that families, have this same support, right, that we are able to invest so that families have the social, the human capital, right, the resources that it takes to ensure that children have a healthy well-being. I can think of many stories of courage, right, that keeps me doing this work. And I can't help but to think of one of the first mothers, right, in our first cohort of Abriendo Puertas when I was actually an implementing partner, right, and I was the executive director of a local organization in New Mexico that was using Abriendo Puertas, Opening Doors, as a way to really invest in parents and caregivers, and to really also organize and build advocacy, right, collective efforts in order to build a stronger early childhood system in the state of New Mexico. And so I think of the mother, Suli, who is a mom that approached me after one of the graduations of Abriendo Puertas. And she came up to me and she said, Adrián, and she told me this in Spanish. She said, for many years, I felt alone and isolated, being new to this community, new to the country. I wasn't sure how to navigate the education system, she said. And to be honest, when I was invited to these Abriendo Puertas classes by another mother, I wasn't sure this was for me because I didn't see myself as a member of a community. I didn't see myself as a leader. And this mother told me, no, come, we want to talk about what it takes, right? How, what it takes together as a community to raise healthy children, to be there for our children, to advocate for them. And she said, Adrian, I didn't see I didn't see myself as an advocate. I didn't see how being a part of this community was for me. She said, now after going through this experience, I not only have a better, stronger understanding of what I can do for my children at home, I have a better understanding of how to connect them to opportunities, to resources in our community. And I see myself as a leader. I see myself as a leader in my home for my children, in my community, and I want to be more active and involved. She said, what can I do to get involved with Abriendo Puertas? And she ended up becoming a facilitator to do this work with other parents. She then became a staff member of the organization. And today she's leading a national advocacy work with United Parents Leadership Action Network, UPLAN, organizing with parents across the country around various different issues. And I think of her story and many others that followed, because it really was about first, right, listening and seeing uh, who she was as a mother, understanding her experience, and investing in her, right, and time, energy, and resources, and building community around who she was as a mother, as a community member. And this work, right, looks different in every community. We also, recognize that we don't do this work alone, right? We work along so many partner organizations like AVANCE, like many of you here on this webinar, and we each have a part in this work, right? A part of the puzzle in order to really meet the diverse needs of our communities. Um, when I think of the journey, right, that I've been through, the personal courage that it's taken at the very individual level, maybe, in grade school and high school, learning to advocate for yourself, and then on to college, to make it through college and to see yourself and recognize that you do deserve to be there. And then, that courageousness continues right today, and just knowing and reminding, myself that yes, I deserve to be, in this leadership role, not because, I'm more deserving than anyone else, but, because my experience, right, my journey prepared me to be at the place that I am right now. And what we try to do is to really see that in everyone, right, and to invest in that in everyone, because we believe that everyone has a skill set, experiences, and the assets, right, in order to contribute the best, right, the best of themselves, of their skill sets to their families, to their children and community. We at Abriendo Puertas, Opening Doors, have worked, more recently to really also build a collective movement, really recognizing that individual courage, could lead to a collective courage, and then to advocacy and larger systemic changes, right, that we all want to see within our communities. And so, we're working alongside our partners at Unidos US, the largest Latino civil rights organization in the country, that really works right at a macro level to impact change at the federal and state levels of policy. And we have a Latino Infant Initiative that we started, and we'll share the resources, through this webinar, about how folks can be involved with this initiative. But it really is about how we take that personal courage, right, that we see families every day, have, and as they work to, build a well-being for their children and families, how we take that individual courage and build out, right, a collective courage and collective effort to change federal and state policies, right. And that means, with the Latino Infant Initiative, some of the priorities that have come up is really understanding that early childhood development and education, family well-being is a holistic approach, right? That we need to look at economic security of families. We need to look at things like ensuring that families have benefits and living wages and paid family leave, programs within their states and at the federal level. Also recognizing that we need access, right, to healthcare, right, and to ensure that that families are able to access preventive and healthcare needs for their children and families. And a big part of what we also hear from families is the importance of dual language and culturally relevant education starting in our early childhood system and moving on to our K through 12 and higher ed systems, but ensuring that we're building the infrastructure, right, and the workforce that really honors the diversity of our country, right, and that includes the diversity of all our different communities, from looking at rural communities to communities that are predominantly, Latino, Hispanic, or our Black communities, Native, Indigenous communities, but to ensure that that workforce in our early learning systems, right, represent the needs of those families, so we can see in our systems, in our education systems, we can see ourselves in them. And so these are some of the things we're working on at all levels. And again, just want to say that we're honored, to work alongside so many of you in this work. And I'm honored to work alongside, the next person that's going to be speaking, Ms. Jackie Herrera, who does incredible work on the East Coast, and that I call a friend and colleague and partner in this work. Jackie, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Adrián. Once again, I'm so grateful to be here with you all this afternoon and really feel honored to be a part of this panel with two amazing colleagues who are doing amazing work and have really, like Gloria, set such a strong foundation for us to be able to continue to do some of this important work. So I feel really honored and privileged to be here this afternoon. Just a few things about myself. I'm Jackie Herrera. I was born in El Salvador and raised in Los Angeles, California. I was raised by my grandmother since I had a teen mom. And I grew up as an undocumented child for many years and not really knowing the ramifications of what that meant at the time, but was privileged enough to be able to get documented status to really continue my education and continue and be engaged in the work that I'm doing today. And so I think because I was raised by by my grandmother and never really was around my mother as much and saw the life and choices that my mother chose, really, I think, created that foundation for me to be very passionate about early childhood and family engagement, because I always wondered how my mother's life would have been different had she been able to access the support and the community and the connection that is needed, that is so strongly needed by our families. And it is really what gives me courage every day and the passion to continue this work. And as I was thinking about what I could share with you all today, and I really thought about the definition of courage and what that really means. And in my office, when I walk in, one of the most important quotes that I look at every day when I walk in is, I love Sonia Sotomayor. So I have her quote that says, until we have equality in education, we won't have an equal society. And that gives me the courage, I think, especially in those moments where we are entrenched in those systems that have such systemic inequities for families, and really gives me that motivation and that hope and that courage to continue to do the work, even when things can become challenging. It's really the type of hope that it gives me when we need the courage that when I need to advocate, right? When families are labeled as non-engaged or non-interested, right? It's the courage that I need when families are denied educational services due to systemic inequities and systemic procedural things that occur where our families are not given the tools that they need to access all those services for their children. You know, and it's being brave and putting myself out there in spaces to advocate and doing things I've never done before, which maybe perhaps even 5, 6 years ago, I would have never done. It's just putting myself out there to do that on behalf of our families and with families by my side. And I think as I share a little bit about Waltham Family School and why this work is so important is Waltham Family School is a family literacy program that really is based on that 2-generational approach. We are a family literacy program that provides adult ESOL instruction for our parents, and we provide preschool classrooms for the young children. But we really provide a very holistic approach to supporting families and really highlighting their strengths and all of the richness and the goodness that they bring to their community, to their homes, and to the school system. And so really our focus becomes providing a space where our families can have access to the English language and learning. Our children have access to the rich educational opportunities, and also a place where we really try to create that atmosphere where our parents can develop and continue to strengthen those wonderful leadership skills and talents that they have. And so really providing those opportunities for them to really leave our program as leaders and really changing the systems in their community. So one of, I think, the most important aspects and things that is valuable that also provides a lot of guidance and courage for us is, as Adrián mentioned, the idea of community, of comunidad, right? That is really what guides our work. I think that this work with families and early childhood is impossible without having community at all levels, right? At the individual level, at the family level, at our schools, systemically, micro, macro, and always we need community. And we need to have places where we provide safety and trust and that sense of connection. And I think that is what we value here at Waltham Family School, and what I think is one of the most important things that we can really create spaces for is where all families feel that they have places where they feel a sense of trust, of belonging, and of connection, because without it, I think it becomes very lonely, that journey ahead of advocacy and the type of work that we do. And so I think that one of the ways that we really, I think, foster that courage in our families as well is, I think, one of the things that we center here, like I mentioned, was really that focus on leadership. And I'd love to give a few examples of really how that leadership shines in our families. This year, we started for the first time leadership committees. We wanted our families to take ownership. This is their school. We want to do what it is that really provides them a sense of accomplishment, but of also of leadership. And some of the things that have happened this year are, we've had opportunities where we have mothers who have been teachers in their home countries. They were given the freedom to redesign all of the bulletin boards in our school. They redesigned them all on their own. They created everything. They set it all up. So when they walk into our school, this is their school. This is their artwork. This is their decor. This is who they are. We've provided, they've created slideshows about their home countries that we're actually going to display at our annual gala this year, to highlight once again the talent, the beauty of our families. Something else we're doing also is, actually, I think we really try to foment that advocacy and that really walking side by side with our families as we advocate for equity in all systems. Especially, I think, I work in a public school system, and as many of you know, there's so many systemic barriers in the public schools. And one of those is finding that courage to be in these places and speaking on behalf of our families, with our families, being by their side and guiding that moment. But literally today between 3:30 and 4, when we were waiting to start this webinar, one of the special ed directors from upstairs came downstairs and brought me this letter and said, I want you to see this letter. He said, I want you to really see the impact of your work. And one of the things that we've done is really allowed our parents to really gain those advocacy skills, how to write letters, how to do all of those things needed to support their children. And he came and showed me a letter of one of our mothers had written a letter requesting a meeting with them, and the format and everything was done just so beautifully. And he said, I just want you to see that all of the effort these parents and everything they're learning, they're out there being leaders and advocating for their students and their children. And it was just so beautiful to see that here we have parents leaving our school or still being students using all of these wonderful skills and just advocacy and connection that they've learned, that they've been able to gain from the school, and take that out and really advocate and be leaders in their community. And I just wanted to finish by just once again saying that courage just requires us to walk hand in hand together as a community. Change doesn't happen without being together, being connected, and finding that strength and courage to really advocate, and especially in those moments where you feel alone, where you feel that the systems are working against you, that we have each other. And so thank you very much.
Thank you. Why didn't everybody come and join us? I want to just thank all of you together. I'm so inspired by the work you're doing with families. Adrian, Gloria, Jackie, thank you so much. I know that our time is so limited on this webinar, which is why we provide you at the end of this webinar an email with resources so you can dig deeper and you can even learn more about the programs that these leaders represent as well. And just one question I'd like to ask all of you, because one of the things that I got out of what all of you said was the importance of listening to families and really trusting in their wisdom. So the family may have a third grade education, Gloria. The family may speak Spanish and not be able to communicate in the schools you're working in. They may not be respected. They may not have the credentials, but if we listen to their wisdom, that is like a very important step. I wonder if you can talk about the importance of listening and valuing families.
Who are you asking?
Any of you.
The importance of listening to families. Oh,
Yeah.
That is critical. We have, from my experiences, I love being the parent educator because that gave me a one-to-one opportunity to listen to the families and to learn from them. They not only learned from us, we learned a lot from them.
Yeah.
And in the home visits, we had another opportunity to do it on a one-to-one basis. Where they were able to share their concerns, their issues, their problems, and we worked together on trying to come up with solutions for them. So you can't do this work unless you have good ears to listen to what's going on and to see as well, because one sometimes may not listen, but parents may not be able to say what they're feeling, but you can see what's going on and then proceed.
Yeah. Any other thoughts that you had? I was also really struck by something that was said, that individual courage leads to collective courage. Could you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, I would say that, courage is contagious, right? I think that many times, one, kind of back to the listening, when we hear from others that we might not be the only ones, experiencing certain things, whether it's, injustices or certain, types of discrimination, or running into certain barriers, or even, we're not the only ones, in celebrating some kind of, something joyous, when we hear those stories, and then we learn on how, maybe some of the things that can be done to make changes. Then when we speak them out loud, when we share them with others, that becomes contagious. And I think that when we create those spaces to take action, to be courageous together, then we don't feel alone. It's all of when I think of my role as a father, as a parent, sometimes it's when you have to confront a tough issue, you don't want it to impact your children or your family. You're afraid of, like, hey, if I advocate for my child, how is it, are there going to be repercussions, on my child's well-being and the way they're
Yeah.
treated in school?
Mhm.
But when we work and when I join forces with other parents and approach the situation, as a collective, then I think that, that gives us, right, the courage in a community, right, that can impact that change. And and we win together, right, and we share in the victory together, and then we're more emboldened to take on other things, and do bigger maybe actions, and go to the school board and speak up in public comment, or go to Congress, halls of Congress, and advocate. So it's contagious, and I
It
think,
is.
yeah, the
I
more
would like to add that that at Avance, the parents got so much courage to know that they themselves can create change. When we were having problems with our funding, they organized. They got the buses and went there with their crying children to City Hall and demanded that nobody touch the funding. They also organized to build a park in the housing project. There were 1,000 children and not one swing. And when we had to deal with the crime by coming together and creating a community watch program. They really felt that they could change things. And then they took it upon themselves to call a press conference and say,
Mhm.
we're not going to take this crime anymore, and we can do something about it. So then together
So
they became
exciting.
strong.
So exciting. And as a final comment, I want to just make an observation between, I'm looking back, looking forward in the whole Sankofa tradition. One of the things I noticed, Jackie, between you and Gloria, she started 55 years ago, and you're right now in the midst of doing much of the same kind of family support that she was doing 55 years ago. She's talked about how you had to put herself out there, and facing situations, and she had to put herself out there against the tide. And what I hear you say is you're still having that feeling of having to put yourself out there, and make that special effort, make that special advocacy. So this is a commonality from 55 years ago of family support till today, still having to have that courage, and sadly still the need to put yourself out there. As a final word, do you want to comment on that, Jackie?
Yeah, it's nice to see how we have come far in a lot of areas, and in others, it's just systems are so ingrained with those inequities, right? And access to the same opportunities as everyone. And I think that we need that courage, right, to continue to advocate in those spaces, especially these places as school systems, these places that really do have a lot of power and a lot of really right places where families feel so intimidated sometimes and so scared and so alone, and how we continue to really walk side by side and provide and together have courage, together have community and belonging, and continue to advocate. And for me personally, sometimes it's a bit scary still to say,
absolutely.
how much do I rock this boat, right? I need to rock it at this point, and we need to add, and we need to speak up, and we need to say those things in the settings. And I remember here, I'm going to wrap up in a sec, but I remember hearing, how passionate are we that sometimes I feel like I'm willing to lose my job for this, right? I'm willing to advocate so much, even if that's what it takes. And I'm not insinuating that we should all feel that way or lose our jobs, but right, that's the kind of thing that crosses your mind in that moment when you feel the urgency to speak up for the inequities in the systems, right? And that really we still carry that burden and really the responsibility to speak up and advocate.
Thank you for the leader that you are. I totally appreciate you so very much. I do want to invite all of you to join us. If you want to interact with our speakers, there will be a link. Press that link and it's going to take you to speak with our speakers in just a few moments. And remember that we are going to continue this series of Portraits of Courage. We're going to come back next month and see how much courage it's still taking to fight for family child care, and learning from Jessica Sager as we move forward. So at the same time, we want to remind you that if you're in Massachusetts, we want you to join some sessions where you can, we're really looking for providers. So please look at this and we'll see this in the email. Join one of these sessions if you are available to do this work. Finally, I want to thank the entire CAYL Institute team. Congratulations to all of you on our 20th anniversary. I want to thank all of you for joining us for this webinar today. Please click the link and interact with our speakers. We'd love to hear what you think. Good night.